Welcome to the Mismatch. I'm Chris Vernon, and joining me as he does every Friday from TheRinger.com is Dave Jacoby. Jacoby!
I'm not going to say it again. I'm going to say it one time. Happy New Year, Verno.
Happy New Year to you. We have so much to get to. Let's start with some of the events of last evening. Who would have ever guessed that we'd have gotten so much news coming out on a Thursday night?
Right?
But let's start with Jimmy Butler. So the Heat lose a game to the Indiana Pacers. That's not that big of a deal.
They got waxed.
128 to 115. And Tyrese Halliburton, we do need to mention him first because I was reading this morning as I was getting ready for the show that he had 30 points, 15 assists, 0 turnovers, and 5 threes in a game. That is the second time that has happened in NBA history where a guy had 30, 15, and 5 made threes with no turnovers.
Jason Kidd. That's my guess.
Tyrese Halliburton last year.
Oh, there you go.
he's the only guy that's ever done it, and he's done it twice. But the story outside of Halliburton and that great performance that came out of this game was that since New Year's, Jimmy Butler has played in 2 games. He has gone 3 for 6 for 9 points and 3 for 5 for 9 points. And has not looked like himself at all. And then he took to the podium last night after the game and got everybody in NBA circles talking.
And I don't shoot the ball a lot, but we won't sit here and say that I don't play hard.
What will fix it? What do you want to see happen to fix it?
I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball. And wherever that may be, we'll find out here pretty soon. But I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here off the court, but I want to be back to somewhat dominant. I want to hoop, and I want to help this team win. Right now, I'm not doing that.
Can you get your joy back here on the court?
Probably not.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's not great. I mean, one of the first things I thought of, 2 things. One was, imagine that was your wife talking to you and saying, I just want to get my joy back in life. Can you do that? I'm happy here outside of the home, but in the home, I'm very unhappy. And then you ask a follow-up question, do you think you could ever get your joy back in this relationship? And she said, probably not. I mean, that is the next call is to the divorce lawyer. And the second thing I thought of is this is habitual at this point. You remember the end of Chicago? Quick history lesson. Him and Tibbs got along. Him and Hoiberg didn't get along. Him and Dwayne Wade said that the young players aren't playing hard enough, and then they got fined, and they got their starting privileges revoked, and then next thing you know, he's out of town. And we all know what happened with Minnesota with the practice and the calling out of the teammates again and the Rachel Nichols interview. In Philadelphia, we know what happened there. Guess what? Didn't get along with the coach, Brett Brown. Didn't love his role during the regular season. And then said, oh, now it's the playoffs. You're going to give me the ball. Also called out his teammates. And we're here now with him saying, please trade me. He made a trade request to anywhere but here.
Okay. 2 things that need to be mentioned here. Number 1, all of those teams won more. So the cost of dealing with the difficult personality or the benefit of dealing with the difficult personality is you win. Minnesota got worse. Chicago got worse. And Miami will get worse. All right. Jimmy Butler, for all his foils, has been he's gotten them to the finals twice. He won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP. He's had 3 Eastern Conference Finals appearances. He's first in triple-doubles in their franchise's history. He's first in 40-point playoff games in their franchise's history. And he saved that franchise. Okay? And I know that there's going to be a lot of people that go back to last year in the playoffs where it's like, look, Jimmy's not available and Jimmy needs to shut up. That whole Pat Riley thing that took place. In the end, you can get past a guy telling you to shut up and a relationship maybe getting a little bad. They didn't sign him to an extension. When they didn't sign him to an extension, and the guy feels like, after all I've done for this franchise. You didn't sign me to an extension. That's where it started to get really messy. And then you have the whole agent thing with Shams and that taking place. And you know that at that point, if I know anything about Pat Riley, when you saw that just unprecedented statement come out from the office of Pat Riley, we are not trading Jimmy Butler. And you also saw his agent going after Shams very publicly. To me, that told the story of an agent calling around, other guys leaking that to Shams saying, hey, man, this guy's calling around saying, hey, if you want him, he'll re-sign there. This isn't like just a rental. And so that's how he gets like the Warriors and the Rockets and the Mavs and the Suns and all of these teams that came about. And then Pat Riley, old school guy, he calls and cusses that guy out up and down. Then that guy says, no, I'm not doing anything. So he goes after Shams publicly as to say, this guy comes up with his stories on ChatGPT, all this stuff, all that he did. Because Pat Riley, he doesn't play that. He's not playing that. And so that's why Pat Riley came over the top and said, we're not trading him. And now you've got a player that's not even playing. I mean, come on, 3 for 5, 3 for 6, and obviously has, by all accounts, said, I want a trade, but this is a mess. I mean, a mess. And one thing I will say, you do win more, but boy, it does not, as you were talking about, as you chronicled, it never ends well. It's never some kind of nice goodbye.
I mean, I think I've used this metaphor before, but it's like, he is like that girl you meet that is super, super hot, super cool, super funny, but has restraining orders on her last 4 boyfriends. And you're just like, I know how this is going to end, but it's going to start great. It's going to start great. I'm going to be the next guy that gets a restraining order or puts a restraining order out on her. But jokes aside, this goes this way with him. And he had a great run with the Heat. You are net better bringing Jimmy Butler into your franchise. But to advance the conversation, I don't think that Jimmy Butler has another 3 good years, 1 bad year run in him. And I think other teams know that. And the trade request went from these 4 contenders to any team not Miami very quickly. And I'm looking up and down the list of teams. There are teams that could use Jimmy Butler, but is a team going to bring in Jimmy Butler knowing that he could opt into $52 million next year? Is a team going to bring in Jimmy Butler knowing that he won't be happy with an extension? And who wants to extend Jimmy Butler 3-4 years now? Who? What timeline is that? Like outside of the Warriors who could barely trade for him if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think that you're probably trying to get off of salary. Obviously, you're going to have to give up some assets, and it has to be one of these teams whose timeline is we're going to go for it for the next couple of years. That's it.
But who's that work for, though? I mean, the Lakers can't do it. The Warriors could technically do it, but it'd be pretty bold, to say the least. They would lose. They would lose a lot. People say the Rockets could use Jimmy Butler, but he doesn't match their timeline as a franchise. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're going to dedicate $52 million to him next year, or a little bit less for 2 or 3 years. Right. I don't see it.
I think there's a lot of teams right now. I think you can look up and down and you go, and you sit there and you go, can I compete for a Western Conference Finals or a title as I'm currently constructed? And I think a lot of those teams outside of Oklahoma City all sit there and say, I'm not sure. Is that fair?
Mavs don't say that. Grizzlies don't say that.
I mean, the Grizzlies are starting 2 rookies.
That's not, I mean, they're not trying to start 2 rookies. That's because they've got 5 guys out every single game.
I understand. But I mean, they obviously went and tried to go get Dorian Finney-Smith. P.S. I'd take Jimmy Butler.
Of course.
So I take him. I mean, as a fan of a team that's trying to compete, what team? Here's a better one. When you sit back and you say, what team would want him? Like, what team do you not increase their chances of winning their conference if they attain Jimmy Butler?
He makes so much money that to match salaries, you're going to deplete your team. You're going to deplete your depth to bring in Jimmy Butler. And a team like the Rockets can do that. And I don't know how interested the Heat are in a Grizzlies package. I don't even know why we're talking about the Grizzlies. They're not going to trade for Jimmy Butler. But like, how interested are they in like Desmond Bane and a bunch of dudes? You know what I mean? That are like contributors.
Well, that's not happening anyway. But,
yeah, it's not.
But that being said, you can. I'm saying there. One thing we have learned about NBA history is we can sit here and we can say, who would want this? Everybody can get traded. Everybody.
So, the Warriors and the Rockets make some sense. Those are two teams that make some sense.
There's always that everything is tradable. Everything.
Yes.
Ben Simmons got traded, bro. Ben Simmons got traded. Everything is tradable. Brad Beal got traded. Everything is tradable. You know what I mean? Right when we think, oh, man, that's a poison pill, that's an untradeable deal, everything is tradable. The question is, who is going to win this epic alpha battle? Alpha president, alpha player. How does this play out?
If you want to listen to a podcast where they break down the 15 scenarios, go listen to Bill Simmons. I'm sure he's going to get the trade machine open and he's doing all the contract, first apron, second apron. But my question for you is different. My question for you is, how does this play out in the immediate future? Because you've mentioned his last two games, 3 for 5 from the field, and then 3 for 6 from the field. One game he had 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Another game he had 4 assists, 2 rebounds. But said, I know I'm not shooting a lot, but that doesn't mean I'm not playing hard. I don't know, 0 turnovers, 0 blocks. 0 steals, 0 blocks, 0 steals, 1 block, 4 rebounds. Doesn't seem like you're trying that hard, Jimmy. So is this James Harden in Houston?
Sure not trying.
Well, to be fair, he was sick for like 5 games.
Stop.
But 5 games is a long time to be sick, too. But
stop.
How do you see this playing out in the immediate future? How does this play out?
I think you have to trade him for the health of your franchise.
But what happens next game and the game after that? Like, are they going to sit him? Do they send him home? Like, ooh, I don't know how this works after he says these things. Like, you can't put this toothpaste back in the tube from what he did last night. You cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's out.
Well, look, this morning there is an enormous cursing out that is taking place. And it's Pat Riley saying, listen, you son of a bitch, if you want to get moved somewhere, you dogging it, I will never trade you. Never.
I always say
if you're going to dog it.
Your actions should support your goals. And I'd be like, Mr. Butler, if your goal is to get traded, your actions should be to play as hard as you can and to score 30 and lead a comeback against the Pacers. Not be minus 27 and put up 6 shots against the Pacers.
Right.
Who aren't exactly the Cavs.
It'd be funny if they suspended him or something.
Just something.
You know what I mean?
It would also be funny if he was just like, I know what to do. I'm going to get the last 4 guys on the bench and I'm going to practice against the stars. He's like, it worked before. I'm going to text Rachel Nichols the next day. Just run it back.
Long sit down that makes you look like a great guy.
Run it back. Run it back again. This is interesting because it's going to be messy and it's going to end. It's going to end soon and it's going to be messy in the short term. And I love the drama and I love the petty. I'm here for it. But you are lying to yourself if there wasn't a part of you that said the quote unquote Heat culture will fix this. This type of thing doesn't happen in Miami. The Heat culture is so strong that it's a perfect match for Jimmy Butler, that he's not going to be the old Jimmy Butler. He's older. He's mature. He's a perfect fit in Miami. Heat culture is going to be so strong that his old ways are going to be changed. And now here we are.
Okay, and let's be fair on one level to Jimmy Butler, because as I said at the beginning, Jacoby, many times, the most talented people are the most difficult people. And that is also true of Pat Riley. It is his way or the highway. And by the way, None of those relationships particularly went that great either, right? The Shaq one went the wrong way.
LeBron?
The Wade one went the wrong way. The LeBron one went the wrong way. Like over and over again, right? That like the first time those stars, when it goes bad, it gets messy. It gets messy because he's the guy. In a world where now the players have power, it is one of the few places that the guy who runs the team and the coach run the show. You have to get in line in Miami. There's very few of those that go on throughout the league where the owner will back the management and the coach over the players. And it's truly a throwback, but it also has led over the years, a lot of those situations with stars had ended up with guys walking out of the door saying F Pat Riley.
Yeah. And this is going to be no different. This is going to be no different. Right. And if I could pick a destination for him, it would be the Rockets. Because I think the Rockets could put together 3 young players and like a Van Vliet salary, and that would be interesting. That'd be a mutually beneficial situation for both teams.
Fair enough.
If they can make the salaries work.
He was not the only one that made post-game press conference news last night. As the Celtics won their game, despite not having Jaylen Brown or Kristaps Porzingis, Jason Tatum went absolutely bonkers in the early TNT game. 33, 8, 6, 3 steals, 6 3-pointers made, and some big plays down the stretch. What?
Before we get to what Ant said after the game, I just do want Rudy Gobert is frustrating. And Jason Tatum, he's the defensive player of the year. And at the end of the game, Jason Tatum is just like, oh, you have Rudy Gobert on the floor. I want him on me. I'm going to score over him or past him, and does it at will. And I don't understand how that's the defensive player of the year. He couldn't play. He couldn't finish the game. They took him off the court.
You're talking to the wrong guy. Not my cup of tea. He's not my cup of tea.
Not mine either. I also like basketball players that catch passes and finish around the rim.
That being said, the cost of building your team around a 23-year-old is sometimes that 23-year-old is going to go into a post-game press conference and keep it all too real. And last night he did after Minnesota dropped that game to Boston.
Yeah, I don't know, man. That was a good brand of basketball, but it's not how I want to play, of course. I mean, I'm only 23. I don't want to just be passing the ball all night. You feel me? Like,
you don't want to be Mike Conley.
Yeah, at all. But the way that they guarded me, I think I have to. So
I was going to say, how hard is it to just stay engaged?
Super hard. Yeah. Super hard. I mean, because I'm wired to score the ball.
Oh, boy. I mean, obviously, if you continue to punish them for doubling you with the pass, they will stop doubling you. He just doesn't, like, he basically told everyone, I don't want to pass. Like, that's not the fun part. The fun part is scoring. I don't want to just pass all night. And look, this is a maturity thing. This is, Minnesota, this was my criticism of what they did last year. I mean, I guess I had egg on my face as they made it to the Western Conference Finals, but they tried to speed up their timeline in a massive way. Their best player is still a young player. And generally, over the course of NBA history, what we have learned is the best players are 26 and 27 years old before they ever win. Before they ever win a title, those guys, and we waited forever, it felt like, for Boston. But guess what? Those guys were 27, 26 years old when they ended up winning. And they tried to speed that up in Minnesota, that timeline. And I think one of the things that comes along with that is there's still always going to be a level of immaturity, and that is your best player. And he's not going to sound like that when he's 26 or 27 years old. But for right now, and by the way, he got a butt-naked 3 look to tie the game. I can't believe the look he got at the end of that game. And I know he's frustrated. He's been frustrated all year long, but Not great. Not great to be like, hey, I don't feel like passing all game.
Listen, you do have to give him space and grace because he is 23 years old. And we celebrate him for saying into microphones exactly how he feels and being candid. So I'm not going to sit here and criticize him for the exact same thing. But after he said this, I was like, all right, let me just look at his game. You know what I mean? Let me because I have it in my head and I was like, let me look at what he did during that game. And a lot of the times is they doubled him and he did not react appropriately. Like watch Nikola Jokic, even Embiid, you bring a double and they'll smile at you. Be like, what are you doing? Because I'm gonna either like look off the help defender and pass to the second option, or I'm gonna hit the first option so fast and he's gonna swing to an open corner three. Like double teaming. Even if you watch Luka, he knows what to do when you double him. And Anthony Edwards would get doubled and like kind of dribble to the corner and try to throw a jump pass to the obvious first option where the double team came from. And the Celtics are good enough on defense and they're schemed up well enough that that's going to turn into a steal or a deflection or something. And it felt like, yeah, you'd rather shoot than pass, but you have to prove that that doubling you won't be successful. And that's one of the things that makes Jokic so great, and it's hard to compare him to the greatest player that we have on the planet right now. But when you double Jokic, he has a counter for that immediately to the point where you kind of can't double him. And if you don't double him, then it's just barbecue chicken. And Anthony Edwards needs to handle what happens on the court. What gets thrown at him on the court, he needs to be a little more cerebral about instead of like, I just want to shoot more. That's not fun. Because he wants to split double teams.
He said the quiet part out loud.
like
none of us. Yeah, like this was Devin Booker in that pickup game with Joakim Noah.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
This isn't fun. Like we're just playing pickup. There ain't no doubling.
Throwing a double. But he's like standing in the corner. And if it's point game, I'm going to double. This is the right thing to do. But
that's
the Celtics had a scheme.
That's how Anthony Edwards wants it to be, though. Like, come on, man.
Yeah. It's like, this isn't fun. It's two defenders. But it was also it was a game last night where he was the only Wolf not hitting shots.
Right.
Like everybody else was hitting like 4 for 5 from 3, 2 for 4 from 3, 2 for 3 for 5 from 3. Like McDaniel's hitting shots, Randall was hitting shots, like everyone's hitting shots. DiVincenzo was hitting shots. Give these guys the opportunity to score, and then they'll leave you alone. Like there's an easy counter to this, and it feels like he needs to come up with it on his own or get coached into a position better. But I'm not going to criticize him for what he said because I love everything he says, and I love him as a personality in the league for years to come.
How about we get Jimmy back there?
Oh, no.
Awesome. That would be awesome.
It's just a Spider-Man meme. Like him and Ann Edwards, it's just a Spider-Man meme. It's just not only are they redundant on what they want to do offensively, it's just like they're just like the same person at different ages of their life.
Oh, man. The Warriors played the late game. Look, Steph Curry at his best is still as electric as there is on the planet. And last night, pulled off something he had not before, which is his most made threes without a miss. 8 for 8 in their game last night. Just, he's otherworldly, man.
It was I think it was a good sequence to have watch the Timberwolves offense and then watch the Warriors offense. Because the Timberwolves offense is, I'm going to get myself a shot. Anthony Edwards is going to go between the legs twice and then take a step back and miss it. Or Julius Randle's going to do some weird back down, up fake, fade away, lefty shot and miss it. And there's no passing, there's no motion, there's no assisting. In the Warriors game, there are 13 field goals in the first quarter, 13 assisted field goals. Whipping the ball around. Swing, open three. Swing, Steph Curry. Oh, somebody misses a shot, they get the rebound, kick it out to Steph Curry. Like, the way they move without the ball, the way they play with each other, the way they play off each other has been well documented. But the juxtaposition between what the Timberwolves were doing offensively and what they were doing offensively was night and day.
And the Schroeder thing started to look good. And also,
finally.
And they are, look, if this is project trade value, the Kuminga thing has been fantastic over the course of the past week. He had 34 against the Clippers. He had 34 against Phoenix, 18 against Cleveland. and then turned around with 20 last night on 8 of 11, 2 for 3. And so if you're trying to bolster up, if you've decided, hey, we're probably not going to be in the Kuminga long-term business, he's at least this is going the exact opposite way of what's going on in Miami, which is if we are trying to make people want this guy, this is going about as well as it can over the course of the last 2 weeks, where we've had a couple of 30-point games and a 20-point game off the bench, where if some opposing GM is watching, be like, you know what? This Kuminga thing could really work.
Good.
Like it's the exact opposite of the Miami thing.
It is funny. They're like, Golden State needs to make a trade. Why do they need to make a trade? They really need a second player that can get their own shot. They need sort of a second playmaker, like a second shot creator, someone athletic like a wing that they can just pass the ball to at the end of the shot clock. And Kuminga, who they're trying to trade, is being exactly that at the moment. Like that is the sort of answer is right there in front of you. But for whatever reason, they know a lot more about Jonathan Kuminga than I do. They've decided that that's not the direction they want to go.
Well, and I think he's probably balling out hoping.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I don't think anyone has spoken about it. I don't think Steve Kerr's ever spoken to him about it out loud, but everybody knows what's happening because the quiet part is very loud.
Yeah, he's balling out, hoping that he can land somewhere that wants to give him the fortune that he desires. Because I think he realizes the fortune that he desires is not happening there. So the better I play, and that's why I say it's a complete juxtaposition of what's going on with Jimmy. Jimmy is not playing in order to get the fortune that he desires. Kuminga's looking at it and going, hey, man, I need to find a landing spot. I want all these teams to want me because I'm about to come up for a contract extension, and it appears as if that contract extension that I want isn't happening in Golden State. So let me go ahead and impress everybody else, and maybe I can land somewhere where I can get my $200 million.
And it might be one of those scenarios where a good franchise and a good player just aren't on the same page, and it's no one's fault. I've been a Kuminga doubter, but he's played well this year. And if you're the Golden State Warriors, you're saying, listen, I've got Draymond Green and his gray beard. I've got Steph Curry already talking about the end of his career. That is my timeline. I'm making a final run with this group. And what I don't want to do is be locked into Jonathan Kuminga as the franchise player, the sun that all the other planets revolve around in the 2028 season, because that's not going to do me any good at all.
Well, and if we're being fair, Jacoby, and I know they walloped the Sixers last night, he's the sixth man on an average basketball team.
I think they're where are they in the series? I think they're literally like in the middle of the Western Conference.
Right.
The Western Conference is so grouped up there that like they're trending closer to a play-in game than they are a playoff spot at the moment.
Right. And he's the sixth man on an average basketball team. That's where he is right now. You can argue that maybe he should be more than that. They've tried to put him in the starting lineup. They moved him back to the bench. It's obviously he's had his say on that, where he doesn't feel like that has done him it's been a disservice to him, and it's had a high cost mentally on him to try to be the best version of himself while he's getting yanked back and forth from the starting lineup to the bench, the starting lineup to the bench. But at least for right now, in the last couple of weeks, he has been playing very well. And
you know what? I forgot. You just reminded me when he said, to paraphrase, like, most people would have folded in my shoes.
Oh, yeah.
Most people can't handle this.
They would have quit.
They would have quit. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
would have quit.
I understand, everyone's fighting a battle. Everyone's fighting a battle and everyone's a hero in their own movie. But like Jonathan Kuminga, like, there's more adversity in the world than scoring 20 points as an NBA player and making like $20 million.
Are you going to, I don't think either of us were going to mention the Sixers later, but I mean, post-Christmas, what the hell? Like, we all jumped on after Christmas.
They
we were like,
so good.
Hey, got all three of them together. They beat the Celtics. Hey, there's still a lot of time left in the season. Here they go. And then My God, this West Coast road trip. Oh.
I thought they were going to make a run in the game last night. I swear to God, like around halftime, I was like, what are they down? Like, I don't know, 13, like 15. I was like, they got to run in them. They're going to figure this out. And here's one thing I want to say about the Sixers. And we'll do this briefly because we have other things to get to. Joel Embiid didn't play. They're in a back-to-back. They look kind of sluggish. Joel Embiid didn't play the previous night. So why does he come out of halftime after a 15-minute break, plays for 2 minutes, and looks like he just ran a marathon and is going to pass out? What is going on with this man? What is it?
He's never going to be right again. We know this.
If you're not going to play back-to-back, don't look like you played a back-to-back. You know, they have 5. I looked it up. They have 5 back-to-backs in the month of January. 5. More than any team in the league. Joel Embiid's going to miss 5 games this month.
And the crazy thing is, that night before when they played against Sacramento, they got a 15-0 run put on them at the end of the game.
Ridiculous.
In order to lose that game. I mean,
they look like the Nets, like we're going to get to later. Like it's like, are they tanking? Wild.
They won that Boston game, and then they had those 2 games where, they won by 3 against Utah, which was not all that impressive. And then they beat Portland, right? And everybody beats Portland. But then, like we said, right after New Year's, they played Sacramento and had this just horrendous loss where they were up huge and then just got run out at the end of the game.
Insane.
And then last night, get beat by 30.
If the Sacramento game felt like the Generals against the Globetrotters.
Yep.
It felt like they were trying to lose the game.
Now, their schedule does lighten up a lot. They've got at Brooklyn, then they play a Phoenix team who's been reeling, then they play Washington, then they play New Orleans. So we may look in a week's time, and we're talking about, hey, the Sixers have gotten going again. Because, their schedule is, these next 4 games, they're all certainly extremely winnable games. And I would imagine, at worst, you should go 3-1 over your next 4.
Yeah, so maybe next Friday's show, we'll say some nice things about them. But I'm telling you, when you have 5 back-to-backs in a month, more than any other team, and you've got your star player who's only played with the other star players in 9 games, I think they only finished 7 of those games together. Is he really going to miss 5 games this month because he doesn't play back-to-backs? I don't even know if he can play back-to-backs, or it's a good idea. It's a mess. Just because I want to stay positive about the Sixers for a second. There's a couple possessions when Joel Embiid set a screen for Paul George at the top of the key, and it worked. There's one where it's just like a perfect little pass to Embiid who finished. Another one where it didn't really look great, but it sucked enough defense in the middle, and they passed to Maxey, who had an open drive. Maxey missed like 7 layups last night too. There's flashes when you see it, like Christmas, where you're like, I don't want to play this team in a playoff series. If I'm the Knicks, I don't want to play that team in a playoff series.
The other great media moment that we had last night was out of nowhere. I guess word had gotten back to Charles Barkley a few weeks late because this felt like delayed reaction. A few weeks ago, JJ Redick is asked about state of the game. And JJ Redick goes on to talk about how people aren't positive about the game and we don't accentuate what's great about our game, et cetera, et cetera. In fact, just as a little refresh, this is a few weeks ago that this happened where JJ Redick is in the middle of the ongoing dialogue about what's wrong with the NBA. And here's what JJ had to say.
I don't think we as, and by we, I was part of it, we as the sort of national partners have done a good job of storytelling, of celebrating the game. If I'm a casual fan and you tell me every time I turn on the television that the product sucks, well, I'm not going to watch the product.
Charles Barkley.
Well, a couple things I want to say about that.
Okay.
There are 2 national partners. There's ESPN and TNT. Right? So, he said we, but it is, he never says Charles Barkley's name or inside the NBA. But he does imply it somewhat. Because if you were to ask which one of those 2 groups of people or those networks is more critical of the way the game is played, it's very clearly inside the NBA. And
everybody knew what he
lost.
was talking about.
That was not lost on Charles Barkley, and he responded. One thing I want you to listen to during this is Ernie trying so hard to do this highlight of the first half between the Timberwolves and the Celtics. Ernie Johnson is trying so hard, and his colleagues are having absolutely none of it. Here it is.
That hey, JJ Redick said something about me. JJ, you better calm down, because when you come for the king, you better not miss.
Did he name you specifically, or was he just talking about folks on TV?
He said something about we're the reason people ain't watching this crappy product we got. I said, JJ, us, like we out there jacking up 103s a night. JJ, I don't know Jason Monroe, I don't know who that is, but JJ, you come for the king, you better not miss. Because I can get you, brother, because I got your Lakers games. You can't hide them flaws they got. You just a dead man walking. They got rid of Frank Vogel, who did a good job. They got rid of Darvingham, who did a good job. But you came out there thinking you were going to change things with that same ugly girl you went on the date with.
64-51 was your halftime score. As we get back to the highlights, and Rudy Gobert.
He went on to say that him and Shaq would be the third and fourth best players on the Lakers.
Right now. Not at their prime, not at the end of their career. You meant right now.
I was laughing so hard. Oh, my God. I mean, it's just so strange because it's like someone told Chuck within like the last week, like, hey, did you hear what JJ said about you 3 weeks ago?
I think it's also fair to say that he's not the most online person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
I don't think he's just scrolling Instagram and TikTok all day long to catch up on the latest of what's being said about him. Definitely somebody said, did you hear what JJ said about you? Yes. And he didn't listen to it. No. And he just went in and decided he was going to say, come at the king, you best not miss.
And I think he's talking about Jason McIntyre.
He is talking about Jason McIntyre.
Jason
Monroe. He's like, I don't know who that is. I was watching. I was like, I don't know who that is either. Why are you worried about Jason Monroe? I go on Twitter or whatever, and I search Jason Monroe NBA, and there's no one. Like, no one comes up.
Because Jason McIntyre, I guess, said on Cowherd that Inside the NBA is the worst thing that's happened to NBA viewing or whatever.
But to be fair to him, I think he prefaced it by saying, like, listen, I know this is going to be like a controversial hot take, but here's just like something I've been feeling, which is whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do a lot of like media.
It's just, I mean, look, it's an amazing hot take, like, I guess.
Yeah, he's just talking. He's got a 4-hour show every day. He's just saying stuff.
I mean, the funniest part to me too was he was talking about like, we're not out there shooting 100 threes or whatever. And Kenny Smith, I don't know how many people caught this.
Oh, I know what he said.
Kenny Smith goes, we're on an hour a week.
Also, Kenny Smith, who is a three-point shooter, is just like, he's got this feeling like that a lot of ex-players have, that they got paid. They're the best player in the league, got paid $6 million a year, whatever. And now, Jimmy Butler's getting paid 50 and like putting up 9 points. There's a part of Kenny Smith who, like, in the background was like, man, I was in the wrong generation. He's like, if I was putting up 15 threes a game, I'd make 10 of them.
Well, and the funniest thing too was that first game, the Minnesota-Boston game ended, so they just had, it felt like a half an hour to kill.
Yeah. Which is what makes that show good, because they have the time in the room to breathe.
Yes.
But it also, they were on at halftime when this happened, and the first half of that game featured a lot of threes, and they were going in for the Celtics, but they were not going in for the Wolves. And it did feel like the Wolves needed to make some adjustments offensively, which is sort of one of the things that they said.
Yeah. It was super funny to watch last night, for sure. And I like the whole JJ Redick, Charles Barkley, and now inevitably,
now we're gonna hear from him.
Oh yeah,
today.
now we're gonna hear from JJ Redick, and he's gonna say, "I wasn't talking specifically about Chuck. I just talk about the, blah blah. The way it's gonna work.
But it is about Chuck though, because you don't see ESPN. Sure. You can be critical of ESPN's NBA coverage, but it's not because they're sitting there trashing the league left and right. That is more of an inside the NBA thing.
Yes, yeah. But people love the old haters. That's how it comes off, like old haters a lot of times. And they're also so, like, non-serious about it, right? Where like people who sits there and watches Inside the NBA, you watch it to be entertained, to laugh,
and have fun.
And I don't sit there. I mean, the idea that people are sitting there going, you know what, these guys are right. This does suck. Like,
I'm gonna change the channel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? No one watches Inside the NBA and it's like, you know what? Chuck and Shaq are right. I'm changing the channel. What are the Buffalo Sabres doing right now?
All right, let's get to Love and Loathe from the week that was. I'll start. Team that I loved. And I was glad to see, we have talked about them several times throughout this year and the amazing season that they have had, but it felt like on a wide scale, I saw more of it on social media, that the Cavs needed to go out to the West Coast and people needed to see them in order for them to gain the proper respect, because as soon as they beat up the Lakers, it was like, ooh, the Cavs are for real. The Cavs are for real. Oh, the Cavs are for real now. Okay. They're 29-4. They're on a 72-win pace.
Just say it. Just say the record again.
29-4.
29-4.
Okay, Jacoby, the 96 Bulls at this point were 30-3. So they're one game off that. They have an 11.6 net rating, which is the same as the 2016 Warriors. They've won 21 of their games by double digits.
Ugh.
And some of the crazy stats that I saw from fearthesword.com, if you want to keep up with all your Cavs stuff, you could check out Fear the Sword. But they had this article that chronicled some of the unbelievable things that have gone on this year for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have a 121.9 offensive rating. To wit, the best offensive rating by an NBA team ever is last year's Boston team.
Yeah.
Which was 123.2. So the Cavs are 121.9. They are 0.3. I'm sorry, 1.3 behind that. And beyond that, like their mid-range stats are crazy. And then this one was wild. This was on Fear the Sword. Not every game has been a blowout. The NBA defines clutch games as ones that are within 5 points in the final 5 minutes. Cleveland has had the best clutch winning percentage and has the most clutch wins, 12, despite ranking 21st in total games that reach clutch minutes. The Cavs are blowing teams off the floor in this situation. They have registered an outrageous 51.5 net rating and 155.4 offensive rating in 39 clutch minutes.
Jesus.
In 39 clutch minutes, they have a net rating of plus 51.5.
So that's if you take those 39 minutes, extrapolate that out to 100 possessions, they would score 50 more points than their opponent.
Yes.
I mean, it's a small sample size, but it's something. You know what I mean? It's something.
And then Kenny Atkinson's offense has improved the most in the half court. They went from having the 18th ranked offensive rating in the half court last year to having the best. They also are the best offense in transition. So they're the best transition offense. They're the best half court offense.
I saw that.
They are the best in clutch situations. It's like, this is seriously one of the greatest team basketball seasons ever through 33 games. Ever. It's right there at the very top of the best seasons we have ever seen. And it's going on in Cleveland, Ohio.
It's you would think that the Cavs and the Celtics would have swapped records at this point. And the narrative, the Celtics have had some bad losses, and that's been covered. They didn't win 2 in a row until last night in the last 10 games. They're 5-5 in the last 10 games. They're losing to the Pacers and the Hawks and whoever, right? And the narrative there is oh, they're getting everybody's best game. They've won so many games. They've been through so many playoff battles that these games don't mean that much to them. Okay, but they're still losing them. And we still act like the Celtics are far and away the best team in the Eastern Conference, even though all of this Cavs numbers and eye test stuff is in our face. And I'm like a month away from swapping.
They've got to flex this team into national TV games second half of the season. They have to.
Yeah.
They have to.
They do. So this is going to be very chalky. Because the team I love just so happens to be the team with the best record in the Western Conference. And that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I wanted to pick them for a couple reasons. One, because they waxed your Grizzlies. And I knew that before we tossed the voicemail on Tuesday's show, I knew that it was going to be, oh, guess what? All of our guys were hurt. And they were.
They were.
But they got waxed. Not competitive. Not a competitive basketball.
I'm gonna shock you when I tell you this. They are absolutely awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I have said many times that I think people are ahead of themselves, where it's them and everybody else, because they've taken one scar, and that's when they got beat by Dallas last year, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to play against a bunch of teams that have playoff experience, a bunch of teams of full-grown men on their team, and I think that for a team that has not proven itself as an elite playoff performer yet, the history of the NBA tells us that you have to do that first. Maybe in the end, I will end up being wrong, but I will say this. As a regular season incarnation, they are absolutely devastating. And what they did to the Grizzlies in the second quarter of that game is what they did last night in the third quarter.
That's
of that
exactly
game.
what I was going to get to, because we all know about this team and SGA MVP candidate, this and that, but I want to talk about their defense, because the Clippers were winning the game. I think they were up like 20 something in the first half. And in the third quarter, it was probably 3 out of 4 possessions. They just turned the ball over at half court and got a dunk. Like, just stole the ball from the ball handler. Like, these weren't like someone threw a bad pass, it gets deflected, and all of a sudden we grab it. Like, they were stealing the ball from the ball handler and turning them over last night. And that was really impressive for their third quarter, what they did. They ended up getting run out dunk after run out dunk after run out dunk. And I've done some research for them. They've got a 103.4 defensive rating, right? Best in the league. The second best in the league is 106. That's a huge gap.
Huge.
Their opponents turn the ball over 16.6% of the time, which doesn't sound like a large percentage, but that's like 1 out of 6 times. That's like 1 out of every 6 times down the floor. They're forcing it, not a missed shot. They're forcing a turnover. Opponents shoot 42.6% against them, lowest in the league. But here's one thing I find interesting. So their opponent's field goal percentage is 42.6, lowest in the league. However, opposing teams shoot 45% from 3 against them, which is the second highest in the league. And it's not like they have some like Rudy Gobert-ish rim protection down there.
Right.
It's I can't really like make those two numbers make sense outside of the fact that they have a ton of really hard-working defenders who are between 6'6" and 6'8" and just fucking swarm.
Well, and you also had to take into consideration 2 of their better defenders on the perimeter and in the post are Holmgren and Caruso. And they've been doing it without those guys. So, I mean, you throw those guys into the mix. I mean, look, they've been
and the other Jalen Williams that no one talks about, the bigger Jalen Williams, not J-Dub, J. Will, like, he's been out.
No, what's going to happen is someone, in order to beat them, you're going to have to drag them into the mud. That's it. You're going to have to drag them into the mud, and you're going to have to, like what Milwaukee did during the in-season tournament. And hope they miss a bunch of threes.
Which they did.
And try to play them in a game that's played in the 90s or the low 100s. That's your chance. Because if you want to try to fly up and down with that group and you want to just play an all-star game, you're smoked. You're smoked.
And it just the amount that they turned the other team over 17% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's nuts. It's nuts. Yep. And they were down a ton to the Clippers. They come in at halftime and they just picked up their defensive intensity. And it was really impressive. And I understand you're a Grizzlies guy, and I understand you're like, well, my team has got so much playoff experience. Okay. And I don't remember them being in the finals. But I think that I'd pick them over the Grizzlies. I'll tell you that much.
We know you would.
I'd pick them over the Mavs. I'd pick them over anybody in a 7-game series in the Western Conference.
Team I loathed. The Phoenix Suns. So after I had sent you the voice message, and then on New Year's Eve, I posted a picture of John Conchar, who had an and one to ice the game. I got a lot of Oklahoma City fans saying, oh, this one matters. Like, bro, of course it matters. Like, Memphis had 9 guys out in the game. And the reason it mattered is because it was maybe one of the most embarrassing losses I've ever seen in my life for a franchise. Phoenix losing to Memphis while 9 guys were in the Oklahoma City game. Yuki Kawamura played the last 9 minutes of the game, and then in the Phoenix game was on the injury report with a bum shoulder. Yuki played 9 minutes. They didn't even have Yuki in this game. They had, at one point, a lineup on the court that had Colin Castleton and Jay Huff, both former Laker G League players.
I don't know who Colin Castleton is. And he was a ton of NBA basketball. I do not know who that man is.
He was on the court, okay? And Phoenix, by the way, had Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Brad Beal, and then Brad Beal went out because he got hurt, because Brad Beal gets hurt a lot. They've lost 6 of 7. Durant, Booker, and Beal have now played 197 minutes in unison. They've got a -4 net rating with those guys on the court. So they haven't been good with those guys on the court.
Remember last year they had that clutch stat? They're like the worst clutch team in the league.
That's right. Well,
they've got stats that just don't add up or make sense.
Well, their defense is horrible. You know, cleaning the glass, I think they're like 21st, but cleaning the glass extrapolates like non-garbage time. It gets down to 24th, Jacoby, on defense in the league. And you look, and I know it should not matter that much that Yusuf Nurkic and Royce O'Neal are out, but like that's the situation that you're in.
Well, were they starting Plumlee? Like,
right, and nobody that can perimeter defend.
Yeah,
at an elite level, right? That's one of the things that takes place. And so they are in a bad way, and it's hard to see how. I mean, I think they're 11th right now in the standing. So I mean, you're on the outside looking in, and I get it. They've had some injuries this year, but when you look at their payroll and what they're paying for that team and the expectations, and they brought in a new coach, this has gone the wrong way very, very quickly for Phoenix.
I'll say this before I get to the team that I loathe is preseason. Oh, this is going to be different this year. Coach Bud.
Yep.
Everyone's healthy. It's going to be different this year. Then they start pretty well. And then it was, well, KD's been hurt.
Yep.
Without KD, they're 1-8. But with KD, they're 12-3.
Yep.
And it was just like, then I told myself, this is all going to change when KD gets back because they're so good with KD. Well, KD's been back for a little bit now, Chris Vernon. And still doesn't look right. Still doesn't feel right. Don't love it. Devin Booker. Remember Devin Booker, the MVP? Remember the MVP top 5 finish Devin Booker was going to have this year?
They have no, I mean, especially, look, I guess I don't know if they can even move Nurk, but
can't move Nurk.
They have no big guys. And look, you're in the Western Conference, and you look at the best teams in the Western Conference right now. If you just go through down the list, right? With Oklahoma City, you're going to be dealing with Chet. You're going to be dealing with Ihart. With Memphis, you're going to be dealing with Jaren Jackson Jr., who destroyed them. And Zach Edey and Brandon Clark and those guys.
Lively and Gafford?
Lively and Gafford. Houston's going to throw Steven Adams and Şengün and Jabari at you. And then Denver's going to throw Jokic at you. And even the Lakers are going to throw Anthony Davis at you. It's like, what do you have to deal with? Even the Clippers have Zubac, right? And it's like something to deal with. Minnesota's got their group of bigs. It's like, you got no big guys. You're too little. You're too little.
And Nurkic has been disappointing. And literally when Plumlee gets on the floor, I'm like, oh, a little juice.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
Plumlee.
I know. All right, team you loathed.
I loathe this team for so many reasons. Last night, the Nets were playing the Bucks. And they led by 24. They were up 111-90 with less than 7 minutes left, and the Bucks scored 20 straight points. Dame Lillard missed a three. They turned the ball over again on the rebound, and Dame Lillard missed another three. And I am not watching it because I was going to cave last night and pay for the fucking Brooklyn Nets.
No, you weren't.
There's this thing called Gotham Sports, and I paid $30 a month to watch the Knicks. And I was like, you know what? I really want to see what's going to happen in this Bucks-Nets game. I bet it's probably just like upgrading, from a medium fry to a large fry. It's got to be an extra $5 or $6 a month. I couldn't even find how much it cost, but I think it's another $30 a month. And I refuse to pay that for the Brooklyn Nets, whether I can write it off or whether I can get the Spotify Swedes to pay for it. I don't care. Just on principle, I'm not paying to watch Nets games. And I don't know if they're actively tanking at the end of this game, or they're just that bad they gave up a 20-0 run to finish a game and then 2 potential game-winning shots from Dame. I don't even know what happened because I can't see it because I refuse to pay for it.
Wait, didn't you say it was $30?
This team exists. I think so. I paid $30 for the Knicks a month.
So from what I was told, if you do watch the Nets, they give you a $5 rebate. So it's actually just $25 if you take the Nets games too.
Maybe that's why I had trouble finding the add-on.
It's not an add-on; it's a rebate. They will give you $5 if you'll watch the Nets too.
I just hate this. They just trade Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas already. Just tank. Send Jordy Fernandez on a month-long Sahara vacations and safari. Like just stop winning games. In the
words of CJ McCollum, I'm trying, Jennifer. They gave up 20 straight points. What do you want them to do?
I was fascinated by this occurrence, and I wanted to watch it, and I couldn't even watch it because I refused to pay to see this team. I just hate the Nets. Just be bad, or don't. Were they trying to lose? Like, I don't even know what this looked like. Were they passing it to the other team?
It's one of their biggest wins all season, and you're trashing them.
Of course I am, because I think they were. I don't know what happened. I just hate the fact that I can't see the games. I hate the fact that they're blatantly tanking. They've traded 2 of their most productive players, so just trade the other ones already. I love Cam Johnson. Trade him.
Player I loved amidst all of the mess that has gone on in Sacramento with the firing of Mike Brown and all the stuff circulating about De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox has responded by having 2 just unbelievable games back-to-back this week. First against Dallas, he had 33, 6-6, and then helped lead them to that win against Philadelphia where he has 35. He's 13 of 16 from the field, and they end that game on a 15-0 run versus the Sixers. And Fox, who has had to go out on social media and say, like, hey, this isn't on me, right? Like, I'm not a coach killer. Like, this isn't about me. Like, the job is, and he has been so reliable. The guy has played every single night. And interestingly enough, do you know, in the NBA, if you're going by total points scored, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is number 1. This would be unsurprising to you. He has 1,029 points so far this season. Number 2 is De'Aaron Fox.
Don't you think they should give the scoring title to the player that scored the most points?
Rather than the per game?
Yeah. That to me is you scored the most points. Should be rewarded for playing more games than your peers.
Kind of like in the Kareem record ideal, where we celebrated LeBron James for breaking the career scoring record rather than some points per game. Okay. Fox is 2, Jokic is 3, Tatum is 4. That just speaks to how reliable and consistently great Fox has been. And I know that this has been a hellacious week for being him. The team is disappointed. The coach gets fired. Everybody turns to you as a reason that the coach gets fired. And so the job then is to be able to respond. And he threw the team on his back, him and Sabonis, in 2 straight games, got 2 really great wins, and he was unbelievable. So I'm a huge Fox fan, and, it can't be easy when they get rid of your coach. Everybody turns to you. Everybody talks about your trade value and whether or not you are going to end up moving elsewhere. And so it's a professional thing to do, is to go out and be as amazing as he's been in 2 really great wins. Dallas and Philly back-to-back are really good wins.
It's good for you to celebrate him, because when Coach Brown got fired, we all heard what Steve Kerr said. We all heard what Mike Malone said. And when a coach gets fired under those sort of circumstances, the first thing that you look at, like we did with Giannis last year, is, well, the best player must have had a hand in this. The best player, well, they wouldn't do it without at least notifying the best player. I don't know what conversations were had behind the scenes. And maybe he didn't stand on a table and say, if Mike Brown is gone, then I'm gone. But who knows what those conversations were like, and who knows what influence he had and what knowledge he had or didn't have. But in terms of perception being reality, the perception was that De'Aaron Fox had something to do with this, or they were doing this to appease De'Aaron Fox. And that can be hard to deal with as a young professional basketball player in the spotlight. And that can affect the way you perform on the court. And as you mentioned, it's a very professional thing to do, is under those circumstances to go out and ball out and carry your team to win. So I think that's a good player you love this week.
Player you loved.
Mine is someone I've been very critical of in the past. So I just wanted to give them a little tip of the cap. You gave them a tip of the cap earlier, and that is Tyrese Halliburton. Not my favorite NBA basketball player, but I will say this. Last night against the Heat, 33 points, 13 for 21, 6 for 13 from 3, 15 assists and 0 turnovers. Against the Bucks on New Year's Eve, he wasn't the best. But against Boston, 31 points, only 1 for 6 from 3, but then went 10 for 13 from 2s. 7 assists in a win against Boston. Halliburton, the last 2 or 3 games, has played really well. I'm very critical of him. So I just wanted to say, just give him a tip of the cap and a salute for especially what he did last night, but what he did previously against Boston, get them a big win.
When I watched them earlier this year in person, one of the things that I thought, I was like, because Nembhard had the ball a bunch, and that there were other guys that brought the ball up, and the way they were doing things. I thought, it's better for him. You get the best out of him, but just keep the ball in his hands. Because he does nothing off the ball. He does nothing off the ball. But it feels like when he's got the ball in his hands and they do the heliocentric thing, he creates a lot for himself and for others. And it felt like they went less to that when in the games. When I saw them earlier this year, I was like, why is he not on the ball? You know what I mean? It's like the multiple ball handler things or whatever. Yeah, but this guy's kind of useless. He just kind of fades into the background if he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And I know that you should be able to, that's part of maturing, is being able to be good when you don't have the ball. But some guys are just like that. We saw it for years with the Harden type. It's okay, now he's off the ball, and it's like, what does he do when he's off the ball?
Watch any of these guys who have super high usage rate ball in their hand all the time, like Trae Young, just kind of don't know what to do without it. And Halliburton is good enough and has enough skills and a good enough shot that he should be working off the ball. But he's been playing well lately.
I'm gonna keep this fast because I do look deep down. I really like this guy, but I've got to put him on my play that I loathed this week, and that is, it's been a tough week for the Heat. It's Tyler Hero, bro. You cannot get chucked like that.
No, I disagree on this one.
You cannot.
I disagree on this one.
No, Ahmed Thompson has not been in the league. It's not like, Isaiah Stewart chucked you. No, No.
Oh,
You cannot get
this is
chucked
nasty
like
work, Verno.
No, you can't.
Verno,
get
I'm going
chucked.
to give you a chance to take this
You
back.
cannot get ragdolled by Amen Thompson. I'm sorry. This is not Steven Adams. This is not Like
Okay.
in fact, how about this? I would rank Amen Thompson not even in the top 6 acceptable Houston Rockets to ragdoll you.
Is Ime Udoka above him?
Of course.
Let's see, Dylan
Van
Brooks.
Vliet, Dylan
Steven
Brooks,
Adams, Steven
Steven
Adams,
Adams,
Van Vliet.
Shengun.
Yeah, we can get to 6 pretty quick. Sure.
Tari Eason.
Sure.
We're down. Jayshawn Tate. I'd rather you get ragdolled by Jayshawn Tate. At least he's got like some kind of mega edge. But I mean, you can't get ragdolled like that, bro. You got chucked.
No. So let me make the counterpoint here. When you
there is no counterpoint.
Ain't nobody want me to just move on and just accept whatever you say as gospel. That's not how this works.
Here's
what Tyler
like
Hero
that.
is expecting in that moment. There is an unwritten rule that we don't want to get suspended. We don't want to lose our money. We don't want to throw punches. We don't really want to fight. We want to act like we want to fight and then get held back. That is the dance that everyone dances in the NBA. Tyler Hero was expecting the familiar to happen. I get in your face. You're getting my face. Referees and teammates get between us. And then we start pointing our fingers at each other and start talking, acting like we want to fight, even though we don't really want to fight and we don't want to end up on the floor. And that's what Tyler Hero was walking into. And what Amen Thompson, who clearly has taken some judo, put the foot behind him and just tossed him.
No.
It was a judo toss.
It looked like he was throwing a dummy.
Because Tyler Hero's not ready for that. He thought, we're going to act like we want to fight. We're not going to actually do anything to each other.
Look, there's been a lot of guys in that situation that aren't ready for it. You still don't get ragdolled like that.
Oh,
how did your whole body just go limp and you went flying?
I excuse Tyler Hero for that.
No way.
What do you think about the postgame?
Awesome. I did love that.
Scoring a bunch, throwing a bunch of dimes.
Dropping
I'd
dimes.
be mad at me too.
Yeah.
And some stupid sunglasses. I love Tyler Hero so much.
No, I do love him, but I mean, you can't get chucked like that, bro.
All right. I'm going to do mine very quickly. Do you know who mine is? And it hurts me to say it. Chavano.
What?
Chavano is Icarus, man. He flew too close to the sun early in the season. And I don't know if you've noticed, but here's his last 5 games. 2 for 6 from 3, 2 for 8 from 3, 0 for 7 from 3, 1 for 8 from 3, and last night, 1 for 5 from 3. And after he hit it last night, he put his arms out and looked to the sky like, thank you, Lord, for allowing me to make a 3-point shot in an NBA basketball game. Chavano, love your name, love your start to the season. I believe this is what regression to the mean is at work here. And is
tell me you saw the Draymond Green get caught on the mic the other night. Screaming at him.
Oh, yeah.
Get your head in the effing game or get the F off of here. And I was like,
Yeah, it's all good when you're going 6 for 8 from 3. Draymond doesn't yell at you about that. But when you go 0 for 7 from 3 and you're missing defensive assignments and you're messing up the offense, man, Chavano, I'm rooting for you.
All right, thing that I loved, Nikola Jokic being the leading vote getter. I have very little faith in the fan voting. And we did see some goofy stuff take place in the fan voting, but I was in absolute shock to see Jokic be the leading vote getter in the Western Conference, because generally what takes place when it comes to all-star voting is it's a popularity contest.
Yeah, LeBron.
That's what it is. This is not necessarily
Steph.
You get it on merit, right? It's not merit, but fan voting is not necessarily merit-based. But this guy is having one of the greatest seasons in NBA history, maybe the greatest offensive season in NBA history. And I think it speaks well to NBA fandom that he has that amount of votes, because I think we can all agree he is deserving and is the best player in the NBA right now. I did not in any way feel that would be reflected in the voting. In fact, the reason it stands out to me is because you saw the amount of votes LaMelo Ball got.
Well,
and that's
one thing I'll say about
popularity.
this. It's very popular amongst people that discuss the NBA in depth to complain about fan voting. And I've never felt that way. Because my thing is, when you look at if you end up looking at the all-star teams, it's not like Tari Eason is going to make it because the fans love him. You know what I mean? Like, it always ends up being the right team. So I just want to caution everybody not to get too worked up about this.
Well, except for when Andrew Wiggins got to start the game because of that K-pop guy.
I did forget about that.
The K-pop guy got Andrew Wiggins.
Disproved everything I said. I completely forgot about that.
I mean, that did happen. Andrew Wiggins still gets votes. Did you see him on that thing?
I don't even look at it. And one of the things is I don't vote. Like, I'm just too lazy.
Yeah,
like I'm just too lazy. I'll open the app and they push the thing right at me. I'm like, oh, maybe this is the year that I'm going to vote. I've never voted on it ever.
I just couldn't believe
it's good. Yeah, and you know what? I think that's good. Let's keep it positive. That's the thing that you love, and I love that. And we're gonna wrap the pod soon, so I gotta get through this quickly. And one thing I love about the Knicks broadcast recently is Mike Breen calling the Jazz Knicks game. Now, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. Jordan Clarkson wasn't that bad in this game, but listen to Mike Breen's commentary throughout the game on Jordan Clarkson shot attempts.
Clarkson on Shamet. Some very questionable shots from Jordan Clarkson. This is the largest lead for the Knicks. Clarkson once again
we're just getting started.
Gets it and shoots it. Ball poked away. Clarkson just heaving him up there. He has taken some bad shots here in the first half.
He has.
Clarkson's going to shoot, no question about it. Comes up short, Hart the rebound. And fourth of the season. And the crowd aware of it. Clarkson steps back, throws up a brick. Clarkson missed a lot of dribbling tonight.
Just a lot of dribbling tonight.
By the way, as you we did not mention this guy, and I hate that we went through the whole pod without mentioning him. On that highlight, you hear in a rebound by Hart. Hart with the back-to-back triple doubles.
Oh yeah,
first time a Knicks done it since 1981, and Michael Ray Richardson. Back-to-back triple doubles, and I saw that. You see that stat going around that he's got like the third most rebounds over the course of the past month.
I don't even want to talk about the Knicks. They've been playing so well recently, but I love that from Mike Breen because he didn't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to trash Jordan Clarkson. And again, I looked up the game. Jordan Clarkson did not play that bad. Let me make sure. I got it in front of me here. He was 8 for 19 from the floor, 3 for 6 from 3. Like, that's not that bad. You know? It's really not that bad.
All right. Thing that I loathed at the beginning of the season, I gave you my breakout player, and that was Jaden Ivey. And he was well on his way. He's well on his way. And in fact, even in that game, was playing one of his best games. And that team is so fun. And you can see the signs of them becoming something in the future. And especially Ivy, who had a really rough first couple of years with the whole coaching and getting yanked around or whatever. And he was starting to fulfill said promise, and just a gruesome injury as Cole Anthony barreled into him and he broke his leg. And the other crazy thing, this is on the, this could be viewed as bad or actually maybe a blessing in disguise, but I still follow his mom, Niall Ivey, is the head coach at Notre Dame. And I still follow her on Instagram. And right before this happened, I saw her post. She was at the game. She was getting to go to his game and was so excited to be there. And so on one hand, awful that your mom has to be there to see that. On the other hand, maybe a blessing that your mom was there through one of your most trying moments of your career. And here's hoping that he can make a full recovery and fulfill the promise that I know that kid has. Great kid, great player, and was really coming into his own. And I give anything if we could turn injuries off, but you don't see stretchers on a basketball court.
No,
so that was daunting to see that.
Absolutely. And then wishing him a speedy recovery. And I think that he was having a season that made you feel like last year was a personality clash and a bad head coaching decision instead of him playing poorly and turning it around as an athlete and a basketball player. I think this is more who he really was. He was showing that. There is no upside, but they say that broken bones heal quicker and you come back stronger than sort of ligament damage and things of that nature. You're absolutely right. And the thing that I loathe is very simple, and I'm going to hurt some feelings of people listening to this podcast, but sometimes there's certain things you need to hear. And if you're listening to this podcast and you still have a crusty, dry Christmas tree up in your home, take that thing down now. It is way too far from Christmas to still have a Christmas tree up. You are just being lazy.
What's acceptable?
Take all the lights off, take all the ornaments off, put them in the boxes, put them in the basement, put them in the attic, put them in the closet, get the Christmas tree out of the house. Get it out the house.
You think if it has to be done by New Year's? You think that's the latest?
For me, I want it out before New Year's. I want the holidays. I didn't even like the holidays a month ago, and I'm done with them now. I couldn't get that tree out of my house fast enough, and it's so dry and gross.
Where do you take it? Because you do the live tree.
Oh, we did the live tree. But here's the thing about New York. You can just take that thing and just throw it right in the sidewalk outside. That's what you do. No, I walked down the street this morning with my daughter. There's 10 trees outside, just sitting on the sidewalk. This place is chaos. It's Armageddon. But here's another thing about it. What's unique about being in New York is I can see in all my neighbors' windows because they're big, tall apartment buildings. And where do people put the tree? Right next to the window. And just last night, I'm looking out my window at all these trees in the windows, and I'm like, what is wrong with you people?
Why do you care?
Because I don't want to see it.
Why?
Because it bothers me. I've moved on. It's 2025. New beginnings, new life, turn a page, resolutions, change. Everything for 2024 is out, including that tree, which is dry and gross, and you're just being lazy. If you're listening to this podcast right now and you still have a Christmas tree up, be better. Be better. I still love you. Thank you for listening to Mismatch.
Thank you to our executive producer, Jesse Loathes, as always. And Jacoby, I'll talk to you next week.
All right.